Good evening and welcome to the celebration of Grade 12 Extended Essay for the class of 2018. Tonight, we have the opportunity to share with you some excitement, challenges, and rewards we felt during our Extended Essay journey. 6 of our student speakers will be presenting their research papers here on stage, and the rest of the cohort will be presenting their extended essays next door at the Black Box Theater.
Over the past year, our extended essays have enabled us to pursue independent academic research in a focused topic within our personal interest area and within a chosen IB subject. And supporting us through this journey have been our trusted teacher supervisors, who on behalf of the class of 2018, we would like to say a big thank you to.
Now, without further ado, I would now like to invite Margot Piorowski onto the stage for our first student speaker of the class of 2018.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Margot Piorowski, and tonight I will be talking about my extended essay, which focuses on the research question, what are the business-oriented barriers hindering women directors in the American film industry? So why this topic? Well, to be honest, I started with a completely different idea in mind. I wanted to base my extended essay on the area of arts, more specifically film, as it is a subject that I am passionate about. However, after asking a few teachers about my research question, I realized that it looked more like a business management essay rather than an arts essay. So the process of my investigation was very different than any other business management essays. Because I started by looking at secondary resources, so by reading interviews online and watching interviews online, and reading articles, I realized that there were more sociological barriers rather than business-oriented barriers. Therefore, at this point, when I drafted my essay, I realized that it looked more like a sociology essay rather than a business essay. At this point, I needed to take a different pathway than I was expecting. I turned my attention to primary research, so I began by interviewing one of my father's colleagues who works in the film industry, which was very interesting because I got to see a men's perspective on an issue regarding women. In fact, what I found is that in 2014 in Hollywood, men directors were paid $193 million more than women. Exactly. Even women of influence, such as Jennifer Lawrence, who is famous for her role as Katniss Everdeen in The Hunger Games, discovered that she was less paid than her male co-stars. Jennifer Lawrence only discovered this because there was a leak in the Sony industry. And nowadays, more women are discovering that they're paid less than their male co-stars, which is a big problem in that industry. And after further, more extensive research, I realized that misogyny is very much alive in the American film industry, simply because men directors don't trust women directors working with them because they consider women inadequate for the job. Now, have you all heard about the Harvey Weinstein case?
Yes. Yeah.
So founder and owner of the Harvey Weinstein film company, Harvey Weinstein himself has been accused of sexually abusing many actresses in the industry in exchange for film roles and furthering their career in film. Since the explosion of this case, which was first published in the New York Times, it motivated more women, especially directors and actresses, to come forward in exposing more male directors and actors abusing them. Notably, even James Franco was recently exposed. So nowadays, more women are participating in campaigns such as the Lean In campaign, which consists of small groups of women forming and coming together around the world to talk about issues regarding their workplace and how to solve them. In America, famous celebrities such as Emma Watson and Sofia Coppola participated in this campaign. So to conclude, I would like to say that writing this extended essay on this topic really motivated me. Not only was this an academic task, but it made me really understand the problem that women were facing in that industry, and it gave me more confidence because it was a topic that I was very interested in. So now, grade 11 in the audience, I encourage you to pick a topic which you are very passionate about and that interests you, and set yourself challenges. Also, if you really want to do something on business, pick a topic that is current, because that could show a lot of originality. Thank you.
Good evening, parents, teachers, and DP students. My name is Myeong Hun Song, and I will present on the topic of the use of models to predict the future population of the United Korea. This is a hypothetical situation in which South and North Korea join together to form the United Korean Peninsula. Before choosing my topic, I debated whether to do my EE in either mathematics or physics. These were two of my higher level subjects, which I was most confident in. I finally chose to write my EE in mathematics because I wanted to investigate the relationship between the social or natural phenomena of population change. The reason behind my choice of topic is a rapidly decreasing birth rate of South Korea. Forecasts suggest that the population of South Korea will start to decrease within the next 20 years. This is due to the expected decreasing birth rate and increasing death rate, making population growth slower. I was curious about how the population of the Korean Peninsula will change if South Korea and North Korea become unified into a united Korea. To explore this topic, I began by researching into current population models. Population models explore the mathematical relationship between population across periods of time. There are two dominant population models. The first model I investigated is the exponential growth model, which suggests that the population is exponentially increasing without any maximum. The other population model I explored was the logistic model, which has carrying capacity. Carrying capacity means that this model allows for a peak in population. Both of these models are limited because they are unable to address how the population declines. The challenge I faced myself with was to create a population model that could mathematically predict a declining population of a united Korea. This led me to develop the research question: to what extent can mathematical modeling predict the future population in the united Korea? In the development of my extended essay, I created my own population model named population change model. To do this, I multiplied the population model with another model, which could address per capita rate of increase. In this image, the result of my population change model is shown in blue. As a comparative, I compared my model with the future population predictions of the United Nations, shown in orange. In concluding my extended essay, I learned that the future population of the United Korea could be estimated by using mathematical models. However, it is one of the various methods which could be used to estimate future population. My findings aligned with those of United Nations, which made me feel a strong sense of success. This is particularly satisfying because I didn't have prior knowledge in geography or population demographics. I also had to learn about differential calculus when I began this EE. So in a nutshell, I have learned that taking risks can bring great viewers. Thank you.
Good evening. I wrote my extended essay on a topic in history. My research question was, to what extent were military factors the principal reasons for Ottoman victory in the Siege of Constantinople in 1453? Now you might be thinking, that's a little obscure. How did I come up with this question? During winter break in grade 11, I went book shopping and decided to pick up a book in the history section. The title, 1453. It intrigued me because it seemed like a very notable historical event, which I'd never heard of before. Constantinople, now modern-day Istanbul, was at the heart of it all. This siege brought the downfall of the Byzantine Empire. And I thought this would be a very interesting topic to research. 53 days of siege, two powerful empires, the Byzantines and the Ottomans, one city. I asked myself, how did one siege in one city bring down a whole empire? Adopting the spirit of a historian, I didn't want to just know what happened, I wanted to know why it happened and how it happened. So I began to do research. I looked at the mobilization of troops of both sides of this conflict. I looked at their military organization, their weapons, their tactics, and the battles that took place. Originally, I had also wanted to compare military factors to economic factors to see which had more of an impact on the outcome of the war. However, I found it challenging to find enough sources on 15th century Byzantine economics. This was a general challenge in researching a historical topic such as this, compared to a more recent topic like World War II, for example. Nonetheless, I was able to find primary sources written nearly 600 years ago to help me understand what actually took place. These were diaries, memoirs of men who lived through the siege. To write my conclusion, I used primary sources and secondary sources in tandem. I looked at what historians had to say about this topic and used primary sources as evidence to support these claims. Now, not all of the sources agreed. Sometimes arguments were contradictory. At first, I was worried, but I learned that I had to take on these differing viewpoints and somehow incorporate them into my essay. Through writing the extended essay, I learned how to evaluate different perspectives and synthesize them. With this, I was able to come up with a conclusion which I found most reasonable given the research that I had done. So if I could offer a piece of advice to my grade 11 peers, it would be not to be overwhelmed if you do find sources that contradict. Varying perspectives can actually strengthen your essay because it allows you a chance to show critical thinking and synthesis skills. With that, good luck on your extended essay journey. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alexia, and my research question, as you can see in the screen behind me, is in Spanish. ¿En qué medida ha sido afectada la cultura latinoamericana por el colonialismo? Or in English, to what extent has Latin American culture been impacted by Spanish colonialism? So something you should know about me is that Spanish is not my strongest subject. So you might be wondering, why exactly did I choose to write an extended essay in a language that I'm not necessarily that fluent in? Well, it's time for a little story. So I was in Spanish class, and it was around about the time we had to be thinking of potential extended essay titles. And my Spanish teacher, Miss Janice, she went around the class and she asked us if we had any potential ideas. When she came to me, I just didn't know what to say, because I had no clue as to what I wanted to write those 4,000 words on. So this stuck with me for the rest of the class. And I kind of see the moment in which Ms. Janice approached me, asking me if I'd considered writing mine in Spanish as a blessing in the disguise of an immense challenge. So I'm not gonna lie, it was very difficult and intimidating, but I did it anyways. So my essay, it explores the ways in which Spanish colonialism impacted culture in Latin America. I specifically look at racism and classism, at cultural celebrations, and at the language itself. I begin with some historical context. On the 12th of October, 1492, Christopher Columbus and his three ships, La Pinta, La Niña, and Santa Maria, they arrived at an island called Guanahani. Initially thinking he had discovered a new route to India, he named the island San Salvador. However, this all changed when they realized that they were, as a matter of fact, on an entirely different continent, and also when they discovered the riches that were available in the New World. So their mission changed. At first, they wanted to convert the indigenous people to Christianity, and we can see that they succeeded by the prominence of devoted Catholics in Latin America. However, this all changed. What happened is they began to assassinate, to violate, and to enforce these people into a submission to a foreign government. For example, in terms of converting them to Christianity, what they did is they collected all their religious texts and religious images, and they threw them in the fire in an attempt to eradicate all other religions. These mansas ovejas, the gentle sheep, they were left at the complete mercy of the lobos feroces, or the ferocious wolves. But despite all the terror and pain that the indigenous people had to go through, all of this has eventually created the Latin America that we know today. Through the fusion of religions that created the Santeria, the fusion of cultural celebrations that created Dia de los Muertos, and the fusion of language that created words like aguacate or avocado in English. Latin America that we know today exists. So 5 centuries of history all went and created a completely different and unified culture. I would like to conclude with a message to the grade 11s. So yes, this topic was incredibly difficult. I had to research, I had to read, I had to write in Spanish. But I truly believe the effort was worth it, because once I hit that submit button on ManageBack to send in my extended essay, I felt really relieved, first off, but I also felt proud, and I felt accomplished. So this is why I encourage you all to choose a topic that not only interests you, but intimidates you as well. Don't just settle. Thank you.
I hope to begin my speech with a quick flashback to the morning of the deadline of our extended essay topics. I sat at my study, topicless, frantically searching the business management course book for inspiration. Realizing my panic didn't help, I stopped and took a quick drink to calm my head. And as I sipped from my mug of coffee, it dawned on me. Coffee! Hey, let's write 4,000 words on that. I got inspired to write about how different people drink different coffees and want different things from their coffee. I got inspired to focus on how businesses analyze these traits to inform their marketing efforts. From 1 cup of coffee, I got my research question. How might an artisanal approach differ from an industrial approach to marketing in the US coffee industry? Grade 11s, your inspiration could come from anywhere. You just have to look for it in the right way. Now I'm going to continue addressing the grade 11s here, because I'm about to speak on how I made my extended essay. Now, yeah. One thing I wish I knew from the start was not to undervalue research. Most of what actually ended up in my extended essay was probably the 20th draft of what I had first written, because I kept learning things along the way that I really wanted to put into my essay. Now, one of the more important developments in my research process was when I decided I needed to focus on the US coffee industry, barring myself from the apparent local insights I could have made addressing the Vietnamese coffee. Now, this was prompted when I found out about the US's significantly interesting history with coffee. You see, coffee businesses in the US began as large industrial chains that pumped more money into advertising than into actual quality production. Now, consumers soon saw through this facade of advertisement, and the image of large industrial chains was tainted. Hence, a market need arose for the small, local coffee shops that specialized in artisanal methods of production, where quality was put first. You see, these coffee shops, they offered an experience that Starbucks couldn't. You see, they had this novelty in being the small businesses that millennials support. You know, they're struggling against these large multinationals that, well, dominate the market. They are the underdogs. Now this especially resonated with a key emerging demographic of millennials. I don't have an image for millennials. I'm sorry. But yeah, millennials who amass spending power even now. You see, I found that millennials, they spend more on novel experiences than on actual goods. So that was my 4,000 journey. It was by no means perfect. It had its share of flaws. But it was my own. And to the grade 11 starting your EE journey, I hope you enjoy making your mistakes. And I hope you build your extended essay on the foundation of your overcome flaws. Thank you.
Why I chose to write an extended essay on plastics and polymers comes from a personal childhood anecdote. My parents, who are in the audience today, used to own a plastic bag manufacturing factory, to which they often took me along for a visit. This sowed the seed for my love of science and ignited the passion for chemistry, especially in the field of materials. Growing up, I learned of the negative environmental impact of the currently widespread petroleum-based plastics. However, due to their cost, availability, and multitude of useful properties, we have not been able to replace them. Thus, scientists have begun their search for more biodegradable and ecological strands of plastic as alternatives. When it came to deciding on an extended essay topic, I had settled on researching thermoplastic starch, a type of biopolymer that was easy to produce and manipulate in a high school chemistry lab. Doing an extended essay on chemistry, perhaps the part that was most memorable, most time-consuming, and most brain-racking was, unsurprisingly, the lab work. And to the grade 11s, I say, anything worth doing well is never easy. The first month I had spent 2 months, twice a week, in the lab to conduct the crucial aspect of collecting data that was to become the backbone and central argument of my essay. The first month was the more eventful of the two. This was the month of conducting preliminary trials. I had gotten the recipe to produce the plastic from the internet, thinking that everything would be fine, but I was wrong. The recipe did not mention aspects such as measuring tiny amounts of chemicals or how to mold the plastic. The plastic was made by pouring a starch liquid into a thin lid lined with cling film for easy removal. In the interest of time, I had decided to oven dry the plastic instead of air drying it, reducing the time to produce from 5 days to 2 days per sheet. However, this did not come easy. as there were a number of factors for me to consider for. How long did they have to be in the oven, and at what temperature? This put an additional 4 weeks on top of my research. However, regardless of this difficulty, I let my love for chemistry and passion for my topic drive me. And at 5 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, I left the lab with a sense of relief and overjoy that my preliminary trials had produced a successful sample. The second month was less eventful. This was the month of collecting data. I decided to test 16 different samples with a makeshift apparatus that was to test how much weight you could put on a sample of plastic. After moments of deep thought and a giant Excel sheet later, I drew the conclusion that different chemicals in different amounts had differing effects on the plastic, and which chemical in what amount was to be determined by the intended application. However, it was in trying to explain the trend observed that I learned a lot. The trend produced was completely inverse from what I had initially hypothesized, and it took a lot of brain work to figure out why. After conversations with my supervisor, Ms. Hua, and through researching similar effects, I was able to come to a satisfying conclusion. The chemical processes relating to my EE were not complex and nothing new. They were all taught in class, and it was a matter of putting together these pieces of knowledge to form a solid conclusion. However, what I could not learn from any textbook or any research paper is the process of conducting a lab from scratch. With the months of inevitable failure to follow, I found this to be an extremely useful taster to the material science degree that I hope to study. And to that, I am very thankful. Thank you.
I'd like to invite our 6 outstanding student speakers back to the stage. Congratulations and thank you to each of you for speaking so passionately about your extended essays. I'm sure I speak on behalf of the whole theatre in saying there's an immense sense of pride in you right now, and I hope you're feeling very proud of yourselves. Please join me in congratulating the class of 2018's student speakers one more time. I think it's fair to say that I speak for every single student stood on this stage in saying that the journey towards success in the extended essay didn't necessarily always run smoothly, as planned, and to a certain few, on time. However, the class of 2018 persevered, showed resilience, and can now successfully stand on this stage, having completed a 4,000-word research paper. And to mark just how impressive that is, if you bear in mind that when you go to university, a first-year undergraduate usually doesn't write a paper of more than 3,000 words. It's definitely something to be celebrated, and I ask you collectively, please join me in giving a huge round of applause to our class of 2018.